In this video, we're going to go over the basics of getting started with Qualtrics. Qualtrics is a survey building software that allows you to build surveys and distribute them to participants where then you can analyze the data. So to get started, we want to make sure we're in the right place so we can log in with our Wagner account. And for that, we're going to open up our browser and go to the following web address, wagner.co1.qualtrics.com. Again, wagner.co1.qualtrics.com. Once you enter in that information, you'll be taken to this page where then you can sign in with your organizational account. The username and password for this is going to be your all access pass, but just make sure that your username does not have the @wagner.edu at the end. So here I have my first last name and my password, and when I'm ready, I'm just going to click sign in. Once we're signed in, you're going to see your landing page here, and all of your surveys that you have worked on are going to be in this section here where you can access them and work on them if you have any that are here. If you don't have any surveys and you need to create a new one, you can go to create a new project. So we're going to click create new project, and we're just going to click on survey here under create your own. And here we want to give our project a name, so I'm just going to give it a quick name here. And when you're ready to get started, you're going to click Get Started. Now we can start entering our questions in and building our survey this way. But what I would like to do first is show you something called a block. Blocks help you to separate your survey into different categories. So examples of this could be if you have a consent form, if you would like to separate your questions based on demographics, ethnicity, etc. So to create a block, we actually have the default one that's here, and we want to rename this so that way we put the right information in. Now for this example, let's say we're going to have a consent form at the beginning of our survey. We're going to click inside the box here, and now you can see I can edit this name, and I'm going to name it consent form. And then I'm just going to click outside of that box to set that in stone. So now I can put my consent form in here, and you can copy and paste this information directly into here, or you can type it in. So I have some text that I've already written, so I'm just going to click inside of here, and I'm going to paste my consent form here. Now mine is a lot smaller than what a consent form normally is going to be, but you can simply paste in all that information in here and just click outside of that box to set that in stone. And if you are going to write yes or no, you can click inside of choice 1 here and write yes, I consent, or no, I do not consent. Now, if you don't need choice 3, you can get rid of choice 3 if you'd like by just clicking on the arrow here to the right and choosing remove choice. And then you have both of these options here. You can also use this menu here on the right-hand side to designate how many choices you have. So if we wanted 3 or 4 choices, we could make this 4, but we only need 2. So we're going to leave that as yes, I consent, or no, I do not consent. Now this is a multiple choice question. So you saw that I typed my answers in. But if I didn't want to type anything in there and I just had these blank at first, I could also use something called automatic choices in order for me to put my answers in. So if I want 2 choices, like I showed you before, I'm putting that here on the right side. And if I choose automatic choices, it might give me options of what it thinks I need. Now, obviously, this does not make sense to what we need, so we can choose here under the automatic choices menu what we would like. So really all we would like is yes or no. So we could say yes or no, and we can make that 2 choices. If you would like it to say yes, I consent, you can again edit that and say yes, I consent. So now we have created our first block with our consent form. Now I want to go ahead and create a new block for our demographics. So to create a new block, we're going to click on add block here, and we're going to again give it a name. And again, I'm going to click outside of that box to set that in stone. And now I'm going to start adding my questions. So there are a lot of question types that you can choose from in Qualtrics. One of the most commonly used is going to be multiple choice, and that's going to be the one that we're mostly going to use in this video. So what we want to do is click create a new question. And once we do that, by default, it's going to be a multiple choice question. Now, if you wanted to change the question type to something different, you would go to the upper right corner here to this big green button, choose the downward arrow, and then you'll see all of the options that you have in terms of question types. Again, we're going to leave ours as multiple choice, and we're going to go back and click inside of the question. So here under question type, we can choose what is your gender? And I'm going to click outside of it. And you'll see once we press enter, all of our automatic choices showed up here. And we have 4 choices that we're giving, and we can choose whether or not we want to include them. So right now this looks fine, and we can leave that exactly the way that it is. But if we wanted to remove choices again, we can make more choices, or we can make less choices, or we can just edit what is here if we want by simply clicking into the actual name and editing that choice. So I'm going to leave that question as is. So now it's time for me to add my next demographic question. Now I can click create a new question like I did before, and it would by default give me a multiple choice question. But I can also click on the little arrow next to the create a question button, and then I can choose a different question type if I like. This is just a little bit of a faster way for you to access the question types without having to go all the way up to the top. So here under these question types for this next question, I'm going to choose text entry, and I'm going to write the question text in here. So I've written my question in here, and you can see once you choose a different question type, sometimes these settings on the right change depending on whatever question you choose. So if I want to give a bigger space for them to write their information, I can choose a bigger text box. If I want to choose multi-line, I can choose multi-line. In this case, I don't need anything more than a single line, so I'm going to leave that the way that it is. So now that we have our question written, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next demographic question. And in this case, we're going to use a multiple choice answer again. So we're going to click the arrow pointing downward, choose multiple choice. And now my next question is, what is your ethnicity? So if we go ahead and click outside of it, again, our automatic choices were not on for us. So all of the choices did not show up. Now, again, you can go in and write your answers, or you can choose something that's already done for you. So in this case, we can say automatic choices. And let's say we want to now base this on, we don't want agree or disagree, but we want to search for ethnicity. So if we click ethnicity and we choose how many choices that we want, we could choose 6, we could choose 7. But in this case, we're just going to go ahead and choose 6. So we'll leave whatever the minimum is for that, and this gives us our ethnicity options. So now that we have added that, I want to go ahead and create a new block for all of our main content. So again, I'm going to click Add Block, and I'm going to name my block here. And now this is going to hold all of the main content of my actual survey. So let's go ahead and create our questions. So maybe for the beginning of our content, we want to explain what the participants can expect next. And there's something that we can do to do this. We can use the descriptive text question type to write an explanation as to what they're going to experience when taking this survey. So here under the drop-down menu, I'm going to click the arrow pointing downward. I'm going to choose descriptive text, and now I just have a text box that will allow me to write what I need to write. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I've got my information in here, and it basically is just telling the participants that they're going to be asked to describe their opinion on dorming based on their experience. So now we are ready to now move on to our next question. And this is going to be a multiple choice question, so we really don't have to choose a question type. We can simply click create new question, or we can click multiple choice. So if I go ahead and click create a new question, it automatically gives me a multiple choice question. And I'm going to type the first question here, which is going to be, are you currently living in a dorm on campus? So again, I'm going to click out. Now again, I really don't need this many options. So I'm going to use my choices menu here on the left to just give 2 choices, and it automatically put yes or no there. So that's really all I need for that. I'm going to move on now to my next question, but now I'm going to use a different question type called a matrix question. And you'll see what this looks like. So I'm going to choose the drop-down menu here, and I'm going to use matrix table. And you'll see it gives you options on the left-hand side, and then the participant can then tell how they would rate those specific options that you have provided for them. So I'm going to click matrix table, and then I'm going to write my question text up here. So I wrote, how would you rate the following services in regard to dorming on campus? Now here on the left-hand side, we're going to put the services that are here. And again, if we want different scale points, we can do that. I'm only going to write 3 statements here, and I'm going to go put them in now. If I want to write a statement, I just click to write statement. So I've put my 3 statements here, and now I'm going to write my scale points of what I would like. Now, just as usual, you can choose an automatic scale point. If you see, once we have chosen this question, you have here at the top, scale points has appeared, and I can choose automatic scale points. And maybe I don't want to do 3, but I'd like to do 5, and I could choose automatic scale points. Now, if I go back down to my question, I can see that strongly agree does not really make sense for what I'm looking to do. So what I'd like to do is go here and then choose the satisfied option here. So dissatisfied, satisfied. And if I only want to do 5, I can do that here. So I lowered it, and now it has extremely satisfied, somewhat satisfied, and so on and so forth. So now I have added this question here, and now I just want to add 2 more questions into my survey, and they are both going to be multiple choice questions. So I'm going to click Create a New Question. I'm just going to do those both questions now. I wrote, how long have you been dorming on campus? And I can write in a variety of choices in here if I like. So if I write 1 year, 2 years, 3 or more. And those are my options for that specific question. And then my last question here, again, is another multiple choice question. I'm going to click inside here. Would you recommend dorming at this institution to a friend? And again, this is going to be it could be yes or no if you want. If we did automatic choices, we can choose yes or no, and you can choose what you'd like. So you could do definitely yes, probably yes, might or might not, or so on. So now that we have put in all of our questions, what I would like to do is start to discuss a little bit about basic logic. Now, there are different kinds of logic that you can apply to your survey. What it basically is that you are telling the survey how you want it to react based on what answer a participant gives. So there are 2 kinds of logic that we are going to discuss in this video. The first one is going to be something called skip logic. Skip logic is the participants must respond in a particular way in order to see the next question. So in this example, we're going to go to our consent form because participants who do not consent are going to need to be sent to the end of the survey. So here we're going to click on the gear to our question, and we're going to choose Add Skip Logic. And here it says, if the condition, yes, I consent, is selected, you can then go to the end of the block. And then we can add another form of skip logic here, add skip logic, and we're going to say if the condition no, I do not consent is selected, we're going to skip to the end of survey. So I'm going to go ahead and press done there. So now our skip logic has been set up for this part of the survey. If a participant selects yes, they're going to be allowed to continue with the survey. If a participant selects no, they're going to be sent to the end. Now you just want to keep in mind that you cannot add skip logic to a question that's outside of your block. So the next kind of logic we're going to discuss is display logic. And this means a question is going to be displayed depending on whether or not a participant meets a certain requirement. So we're going to go to the gear of the question that will or will not be displayed. So in this case, we're going to go down to how would you rate the following services in regard to dorming on campus? And we're going to click on the gear here and choose Add Display Logic. And it says display this question only if the following condition is met. And this is going to depend on the question before it. So if we select the question, are you currently living in a dorm on campus? And if this question is only going to be displayed if this question is yes. So we're going to say yes. So we press save. And now we know that this question is only going to be displayed if yes is selected for this question. Now, one more thing we want to do in regard to logic is we want to add skip logic on this question as well. Because are you currently living in a dorm on campus? If they say no, the rest of the survey does not apply to them. So we're going to use skip logic once more for this, and we're going to click on the gear, choose Add Skip Logic, and we want to say if the condition yes is selected, skip to question 9, and then we're going to press done. And then we're going to do one more skip logic and say, if the condition no is selected, skip to end of survey. I'm going to press done. And now we have all of the logic that is going to be included in our survey. So we're going to go over a few more things in terms of getting started with Qualtrics. So the next thing we're going to go over in regard to Qualtrics is something called piped text. Pipe text allows you to make a question more personalized by taking answers that were previously given in another answer and plugging them into another part of the survey. So, for example, here at the end, we're asking participants if they would recommend dorming to a friend. Now, we could take the answer from that question and use piped text to help us ask the next question. And so that's what we're going to do now. So the first thing we want to do is add a page break, and we want to make sure that we have the right question selected. In this case, it's going to be question 11. I want to make sure I don't have any other questions selected either so that it doesn't get confused, and I don't. So here under question 11, I'm going to click Add Page Break. So now that I have added my page break, I can now create the next questions that are associated with my piped text. So I want to create two questions here. The first one I'm going to create is a descriptive text here, and I'm just going to write something simple, and I'm going to write, "You chose." Now, we want to choose piped text for this. We're going to click piped text, and then we're going to choose the question, which was question 11, would you recommend dorming? And we want to choose selected answers. So now we know that it's going to pull in the answer from question 11 to answer our next question. So now that we have that set up, we want to create one more question here, and that's going to be a text entry question. And we're going to write, can you elaborate more on why you chose this option? This can also be used if it isn't an anonymous survey to bring their name into a question. So pipe text allows you to do things like that. So now we know that this question 11 will say, would you recommend dorming at this institution to a friend? Depending on whatever answer they say, it will show up here because you pulled in their answer from question 11 to this question here. And then it can base the next question based off of whatever their selected choice was. So this just allows you to bring and make it a little bit easier on yourself so you can sort of connect the survey in different ways. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about here is survey options. And now this is where you can go to make changes to your survey's preferences. So we're going to go to survey options here at the top. And there's a bunch of things here, but some of them that are very useful are adding a back button, which will enable respondents to go back and change their answers. You can also add password protection to it if you want them to be able to have a password that they need to take it. If you click password protection, you will write that password there in the box, and that's what they will need to take it. When you send out the survey, you'll have to give that password to the participant so that way they know what that password is. You can also set a survey expiration date if you like, if you want it to expire after a certain time. And you can also choose how you would like to handle partial responses. So if you click here at the bottom, partial completion, and you will tell Qualtrics what you want to do with partial answers. Once you are done with your survey options, you can click on save, and that'll save all of your answers. So just so you can see, I'm going to add a back button here, and you can see that we have changed some of those settings. I'm going to click on save, and now our survey options have been changed. Now, one thing we can do is preview our survey so that way it looks the way we want it to look. So to do that, we're going to click on preview here at the top, and the second page shows up here where you'll see what it looks like on a mobile device, and then you could also fill in the information here. So I'm going to take the survey and I want to say, yes, I consent. And I'm going to go ahead and answer all of the questions here. And then I'm going to say yes because I want to see what happens if I say yes. And I'm just going to fill in any answers here. And so I'll do two. Now, this is the one thing I want to take a look at. Would you recommend dorming at this institution? I'll say probably yes. And now if I go to the next page, you'll see our pipe text was brought in. So that worked properly. And now if we want to check our logic, we can restart the survey. If I say no, I do not consent, it will take me then to the end of the survey. And then lastly, we can look at our other logic. So I could say yes, I consent. And then we can just go down the list here. And if I say no, I'm not currently living in a dorm, it should send me to the end of the survey as well. So this just gives you a way to take a look at your survey, make sure everything looks the way that it should. And one other thing I wanted to show you that I forgot to show you before, if you wanted to force the response on a question so that way they had no choice but to answer a question, you could check off that question, and then here on the right hand side you can choose under validation options force response. And this will make sure that they answer that question and not move forward in the survey. The last thing we're going to talk about is distribution. And now there's two ways that I'm going to show you how you can distribute a survey. The first way is the easiest way, and that's by using an anonymous survey link. Now, this link is a link you can share with participants that will not give any identifying information at all. It'll just be the data of the participants. To do this, you would go to the top here, click on distributions, and you can choose here on the left-hand side, I believe, or it's actually in the center here. You can use your own email system. You would click get a single reusable link, and that will then give you the anonymous survey link where you can highlight this link and you can send this to anyone. Once you send this link out, they'll be able to go ahead and take the survey, and those responses will then show up under data and analysis. Now, the other way I'm going to show you is the email list. And the email is a specific contact list of people asking them to take the survey. This option is not anonymous and it will provide identifying information. If we click on emails, you can compose an email here and it will bring up this form here and it'll say who it's from and when to send it. You could put the subject of your survey in here, and then you can write your message. It'll take a link to the survey and they can follow that link. If you had a password, you can include the password in this email as well. Now, the one thing you need to know how to do is to select contacts for this specific way of distributing your survey. If you click to select contacts, you can create a new contact list by clicking new contact list, and you can write in the email and first and last name of all the people that you are going to be adding to this contact list. If you wanted to create the contact list in advance, you could do that if I press cancel here and choose contacts. So we're going to click create contact list and we'll just name this, press next. And then we can add manually like we could before, or we can also import from a file. And what I would recommend doing is downloading the example document that's here, so that way you can just open it up and input the information that way. This way you know what kind of format it needs to be in, and you don't have to worry about putting in the wrong information. So if I put in, I want to open this with Excel just so we could see what it looks like here. And now we can put in the information. You can see it has first name, last name, and primary email. And that's really all you really need. So if we left John Doe in there and we could put, let's see, Mickey Mouse, and we can also put IT training. Now we could just save this because it's already in a CSV, but if we wanted to make sure, we could click save as and make sure that we save it with the name that we want. So, and I'm going to put this on the desktop and press save. So I'm going to X this out. I want to go back here into Browse, and I'm going to choose the Qualtrics import, press Open, and then it's going to load all those contacts that are in here. And so when I'm done, I'm going to click Add Contacts, and it should have all my contacts there. So now if I go back to my project here, up here under Projects, and I choose my Qualtrics walkthrough, I can now go in and distribute this survey by clicking distributions. And if I didn't want to do the anonymous link, I can now choose emails and compose email. And so now when I go to select contacts, I can choose from my library and I should be able to see the Qualtrics walkthrough contact list here. So I could select the entire list and that will then send that out to the students as well. So there's a variety of different ways that you can distribute your survey, but those are two of the most popular ways to do it. Now, the last thing that I want to show you is data and analysis. And we're not going to really go too much into this because for this survey, we don't have any answers yet. But one of the most popular ways of looking at data is by exporting your data to an Excel spreadsheet. And that's really easy to do because you could click Export and Import, choose Export Data. And once you do that, you can choose where you want to export it to. So if I just wanted to export it to an Excel spreadsheet, I could leave this actually as a CSV. And then I can choose if I want to use numeric values, use choice text, click download, and that will then download all of my data from my survey into an Excel spreadsheet that I can later analyze. And then once you start getting data from your survey, you can also search within data and analysis here to compare answers in Qualtrics and make reports. We're not going to go over that in this video, but I did want to show you that you could export it to an Excel spreadsheet because that seems to be a very popular way of doing so. So this was just a basic walkthrough of Qualtrics. There are many different things that you can do when creating surveys, but this is really what you need to get started. I hope that this was helpful for you and that when you're creating your surveys, you'll be able to use it as a resource.